Hello everyone. Harmonic journeys are short meditations that allow us to relax into ourselves. In many ways, they're based on one quote from John Roger. John Roger is the founder of the movement of spiritual inner awareness and is my spiritual teacher. He passed away about 5 years ago, but everything he did left a lasting impression on me and informs all that I do. So the harmonic self is dedicated to him. He said something that I'm still unraveling and unpacking. It's a quote. He said, the greatest secret is that the journey is already over before it has begun. You are already there. That one for whom you seek is already present. Why is this a secret? Because so few claim it. Do you? With your next breath? So that's the quote, and I've been, as I said, unpacking that for several years actually, and I felt that this was a good time to share with you what I've learned. This harmonic journey is not about being in any kind of perfected state or that we have to maintain something. Of course, it's nice if we can maintain a sense of presence, a sense of being who we are all the time. But in reality, it's something that we kind of move in and out of, unless one is a great spiritual master. But for many of us, if you're like me, it's really a question of getting up one more time, then I fall down. So I go in and out of balance hundreds of times during the day. And, I guess the good news is I just don't stay out of balance. And that's really, really, really helpful. It's just a question of just coming back into balance. And it all starts with this little hand gesture that I have. When we become identified with our judgments or our anxiety or our fears or our upset, there's plenty to be upset about, particularly in this day and age. Believe me, as soon as one opens up a newspaper online, and it's just like, it's almost a deluge of things to be upset about. And oftentimes I do buy into it. And at that point, the ego personality is really locked in and it becomes like front and center. And what we're doing in these meditations, in the harmonic journey, is this other part that is aware that this is happening. See, that's really the key. If we're identified and we can't separate, then it's really a whole different story. But as soon as we can just get that little separation, that means that we're not that. We know that even though we may feel anxious, who we are is not anxiety. And it's just behind here, for want of a better word, just in the background, just peaceful and loving and just okay with everything. So if we can move this background more here, then this anxious part here finds its place and relaxes and lets go. And really what this means is that whatever's going on inside of us, we're really okay with. It has its place. We're not trying to get rid of anything, and we're not making anything wrong. We're just saying that perhaps in that moment it was a little misguided and got a little bit ahead of itself, a little bit full of itself, and thought that it was really in charge, when really it's very fragile. And so if we can come back to really what's really there and present and who we truly are, which is a loving, peaceful, joyful being, then that can take center stage in a way. But here's the thing that's so interesting. when it takes center stage, it's not a mental process. And this is the thing that we need to get away from. It's just that we are not up here so much. And a lot of us identify ourselves as this person that's here and that's thinking our thoughts, and this is who we are. And that identifying locks us into some negative patterns. And so what we're trying to do is get behind that and say, well, if I'm aware of my mind, then I'm not my mind. And if I'm aware of my feelings, then I'm not my feelings. And then who am I? And then that comes forward. And then we go back to John Rogers' quote, that one for whom you seek is already present. That the journey is already over before it's begun. So we are here, present, and we want to bring who we are just forward, and that's really what we're doing here. So that's what the harmonic journey is all about, and let's just go on one of them now, and let's see how we do. And so you can just be aware of anything you're feeling right now, perhaps sometimes a little anxiety or a little fearful. That's very common these days. A little tense perhaps, or maybe you feel fine, which is wonderful. And what's so interesting, and even if you do feel fine, there's always an opportunity to even go deeper within yourself. And so we ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us and the space that we're in right now for the highest good. That immediately shifts the field, and we can amplify that with our loving by just bringing forward our loving heart. Now, some of you may be doing this meditation before you go to bed, in which case you can just really allow yourself to go. But I want to explain this meditation in terms of something that you can do throughout the day, because we're not going away. We're actually becoming more present with who we are, and that can actually lead us through the day. And one way of describing it is that we're being, and that the doing that we do comes out of our being rather than the incessant doing and doing from this ego personality place. Here we come into being, and then the doing comes out of that. It is actually more of an effortless place, and certainly much more pleasurable. And I think you'll find that when you are in that place, people will probably point it out to you, say, oh my God, you're so much nicer, you're so much easier to be around, and those lovely qualities that we oftentimes aspire to. So we have the energy field, and we bring in the loving. And if you are going to go off into the night travel, I recommend that you call forward the mystical traveler consciousness from within your heart. This is a loving consciousness that transports us to where we need to go. It's within us, within each human being on the planet. And we call it forward. We dial it in by just asking. Get into our loving, and just that we ask that the consciousness of the mystical traveler come forward from within our hearts and transmute or dissolve or release any negativity or any disturbance or fear, worry, concern, dis-ease, taking it back into the nothingness from which it came for the highest good. And that this consciousness guide us on our inner journey. And so with all of that present now, we can just close our eyelids and just become aware of the rising and the falling of our breath. And now we can just gently drop our awareness down into our hearts. And when I say down, I mean a lot of times we're stuck in our heads, in our thought process, Just let your awareness come down into your heart. And we do that through this ability to detach from whatever we're upset about, and using that tuning awareness, that ability to dial in, just like we're a radio, a tuning instrument, into the heart center. And we can find ourselves breathing in and out through our heart center now. Just relaxing. And as you breathe in and out through the heart center, just feel an expansion of awareness that goes beyond your heart, outside in the periphery of your body. So an expansion so that you're in this spacious awareness. John Roger calls it the spiritual sky. We're actually the sky. Just a very expansive place. But what's interesting is that we haven't left the heart either. So just hang out in that space for a moment. Into the spacious awareness. You can still be breathing in and out through your heart center. As you enter into that spacious awareness, you'll find that thoughts arise like they're clouds in the sky, and they disappear like clouds in the sky. They just pass through, and you find that you're moving now into a different state of awareness. That awareness is expansive, but above all, it is completely loving, unconditionally loving. And what's beautiful about that loving state is it has room for everything. All of your behaviors, all of our behaviors, all of our negative patterns, all of the things we've made wrong or put ourselves down for, it just doesn't care. It just loves them all. So when we move into that place, none of these things matter anymore. We're just into that loving place. And I would like you just to realize that this spiritual sky has its own awareness. That is you, by the way. It's not separate from you. It has its own awareness that is not a mental process. It's not a thought. Just be in the spiritual sky while breathing in and out through your heart. And now just be aware of that loving, just being all through your being. Wherever you find your being at this point, the lines may blur and you just may find yourself being in spaciousness, in the spiritual sky, unconditionally loving. Not thinking about it, but being it. You're aware that you're formless, but that you also have form. So in many ways, it's a paradox. Your normal identity disappears. And you find yourself at peace in a pure, loving space. It's a point of clarity, in many ways of purity. And again, as things arise, they just, for want of a better word, vaporize. It's the cloud that appears and then disappears. In this pure state, there's nothing to be concerned about. You may see a color in your inner consciousness, and if you do, and if you're going to bed right now, or you have time just to completely relax and let go, you can just follow that color, just ask for the highest good, the mystical traveler consciousness to guide you, and off you go. And for those of us who are starting the day, we can once again just be aware of the loving consciousness and slowly bring ourselves back, knowing that we're not going away from anything, but now this consciousness is just at the forefront. And we can be completely at peace with ourselves as we open our eyes. Completely okay with everything. And the important thing is that we know that this state is already available to us, that it is really who we are, that there is really no journey. We're already there. Berush Beshan, which means the blessings already are.